All right. Welcome to the next lesson for early China. In this one, we're going to be talking about Taoism. In the last lesson, we talked about basically the warring states in general, kind of how bad of a situation it was, how people were forgetting how to feel happy, and then comes around the sages trying to say, hey, follow me, I know what happiness is, and we get to the three main ones, which is Confucius, who comes up with Confucianism, Lao Tzu with Taoism, and Han Fei with legalism. So we covered Confucius in the last one, um, with at least with the basics. And this one we're going to go into, we're going to get into Taoism. So right off the bat, I hope you're noticing the symbols up at the top. I think most of us have seen that. It's called the yin-yang. I'm going to explain that a little bit more and just to explain this idea of Taoism. Although just right off the bat, I feel like I need to explain this idea that there's a lot of things with Taoism where we're, just one second, let me close this door, just in case, where we're in stuff like, oh, the Taoism, that I like that aspect of it. That seems pretty deep, and I can see it. That seems very true in certain cases. But there are other aspects of Taoism we're looking at the world that does not go well along with, say, you could say, like Western, especially Judeo-Christian culture. And it comes down to this. Well, let me put it up here. So, well, not completely with that, but in explaining that, I'll explain this a little bit later, but the idea is this. Uh, we have this idea that there is a definite cases of right and definite wrong. Taoism would argue that there is never anything that is all right, meaning correct, or anything that is all wrong. And that's where we have a bit of a disconnect with the Taoist philosophy, where there's some things about it that's like, yeah, that makes sense, and you get to that part, it's like, well, maybe not. Just let you know right off the bat about this philosophy and kind of the philosophy that you and I have mostly grown up in, or the culture that you and I have grown up in here in Western civilization. So now getting into Taoism though. Taoism literally means the way, like the ism of the way, finding your way through life. And as I said earlier, like the best way I could summarize Taoism is this idea of just go with the flow. It's with that type of an idea. It's kind of understandable why hippie culture really took a lot of hippie culture liked a lot of Taoist things. Although I also feel like if hippie culture really looked into Taoism, how Taoism really looks at the world, well, it's not all peace and love. Let's put it that way. So, uh, anyways, simply put, if you can basically look at the world around you, see how the flow of the world is going, and then find yourself in it without bouncing around too much, not trying to exert your will against the world and what's going on around you, and you can basically become one with the world around you. That's what it means by stressing the goal of becoming one with nature. Like becoming one with the world around you, meaning not when we say one with nature. I know I have a picture there of like a nice scenic area. By the way, I have that picture on purpose because I believe that is the area where Lao Tzu went and like meditated for, oh God, how many years? Like 40 some odd years or something like that to kind of come up with this philosophy and this way of living. So it makes sense why he would say one with nature, because he kind of was a bit of a hermit himself. Anyways, heck, a lot of us are like this, where hey, I just need to get away from life and get out into the trees and just. It's nice to be there just to think, especially here in Utah. We got the mountains right next to us. A lot of us can do things like that, and we'd understand that. But this idea of becoming one with nature isn't just the idea of talking about nature. That's part of it, most definitely. But it's also like everything. It's the buildings. It's you and I, our characteristics, our attitudes, one to another. The buildings that we walk into, becoming one with nature. We understand doors usually open this way. They don't go that way. And we understand we stay on the right-hand side of the road instead of the left-hand side of the road. And that way, by not saying, I'm going to drive on the left-hand side of the road, just because I want to, that'd be exerting your will against the world around you, and it'll usually cause a heck of a lot more harm and disharmony and bad things happening and destructive things happening, if you just stop doing that and just get on the right side of the road, just go with the flow. Now, hopefully that's a good example there. But this is one of the harder ones to explain, mainly because I do need to say, I know I don't understand this completely well myself. And there's people that devote their entire lives to understanding this stuff, and even they would say, I don't quite get it completely, and I'm still trying at it. So, I've heard and read many people saying that I should say. So, I'm doing the best I can, let's put it that way. But I feel like I do have the basics here. So, become one with nature through self-mastery and virtue, meaning like, okay, I will stay on the right-hand side of the road, and I will just make sure I do that. I will master the ability of staying on the right-hand side of the road when I drive. Or I'll master the ability to, God, examples just flew out of my mind. I had a couple right there, and they all just flew out of my mind. God, I can't think right now. Well, I'll master getting my homework in on time. If I go against that, then I'm just going to ruin my own grade and other things around me, and I'll get grounded and blah, blah, blah. It's just better just to go with the flow. So, anyways, and once you can do that with all aspects of your life, then you achieve this balance, and then you can be truly happy. This is the whole idea of Taoism. So, in order to kind of get this, understand how that works in each person's life, you have what's called the YinYang Symbol. The flow of the world around you. And this is where we're going to get into this idea of, well, Taoism doesn't say everything is all good and all bad or all correct and all wrong. There's a little bit of each. Like something can be mostly correct but a little bit wrong, or mostly wrong but a little bit correct. And there's a lot of cases where I could bring up tons of examples where that would be the case, where that does seem to make sense. But then there's certain ideas of like, no, some things are just pure evil and some things are just pure good. Our society definitely goes along with that type of thinking in many situations. So, well, let's start off with the definitions. If you cannot read what's on there, which maybe you can't, maybe it's blurred out, but you have the yin, which is kind of the dark side with a little bit of a white part to it, and then the yang, which is the white side with a little bit of dark to it. So the yin represents everything that is negative, female, of the night, passive, moon, intuitive, cold, or soft. Then the yang side is all basically attributes of being positive, male, the day, activity or active, the sun, logical thinking, hot, and hard. So, you can pull out of that what you will. Yes, there's a lot of people that don't like that, especially when you get to the gender aspects of it. But that's what it is. When I say that's what it is, that's what this philosophy takes it as. There's understanding you have these opposites in life, but you can't have all one without the other, basically. You can't have something that is basically, you can't have the sun without the moon, you could say. You can't have logic without intuitiveness. So, with that being said, let me give you a few examples. Here's an example of how you can apply this symbol to, and the way the symbol is supposed to adapt to, say, something very simple. The one example I like to use is like a jelly donut. So let's say I've never ever tasted a jelly donut in my life. Maybe someone out there is like, nope, I never have. And in my case, I really like a jelly donut. Oh, holy cow, the sugar really gets me now. That I shouldn't go there right now because that could actually be part of the whole example. So, say I'm a kid, I never had a jelly donut before, and the first time I have one, it is amazing. Absolutely amazing. I love it. I want more. It's just like, it's the best thing ever. Makes me very happy in that moment. And in that case, I would be channeling my yang, you could say. I'm in with the yang. But I need to watch out for what could be the yin there. I don't mean to make the yin sound necessarily bad, but I need to understand that it needs to be a balance when it comes to jelly donuts. Because if I do not exercise self-mastery and virtue, then what if I just all of a sudden start spending my entire life trying to get jelly donuts, trying to achieve jelly donut, whatever in my life, the high of my life, I guess you could say. And so, like, I just have no self-mastery to it. I just eat more. All of a sudden, my jelly donut intake is like 50 a day. I just can't stop. Of course, what's going to happen there is that the danger, like the first time I have a jelly donut, it is awesome. It's amazing. It's the best experience I've ever had. I want to recreate that experience over and over again. The problem is every single time I eat another jelly donut without any self-mastery in place, the yang part you can say like the white part starts getting smaller and smaller and smaller because I'm never really truly achieving that first high, I guess you could say. And then that little black dot starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And what that black dot represents is all the potential consequences that could happen to me if I'm not exercising self-mastery. You know, things like getting very overweight will start setting in. My attitude will probably suffer because I'm not as active any longer. I'm not getting outside, you could say, because all I'm doing is doing jelly donuts, not exercising. I'm suffering financially because I'm spending way too much on jelly donuts. Over time, I developed type 2 diabetes. Then I have massive pains and all the things that go along with that, which is not fun. And then I suffer, and if I don't basically get my life in order, I will suffer a premature death, most likely. You know, I probably could have lived a lot longer if I just would not have, if I would have just had a balance in my life and be able to exercise some self-mastery there, my life would have been a lot better. But instead, I just allowed the black dot to then become the overarching thing. So basically, if you're looking, it's hard to point, I can't point anywhere, but if you're looking at the swirl here, in the beginning it's like this, but then it swirls into a life like this where I am ever, now my life is on this side where I am ever chasing that desire of my first high, but my life is getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, where that white dot's starting to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller over time unless I'm able to somehow get a balance. Anyways, this is this type of application of the of the philosophy of Taoism makes a lot of sense. It's like, yeah, don't eat simply put, stop eating jelly donuts. Don't ruin your life off of that one. And I'm hoping other examples came into your mind with that one. There's a heck of a lot of other examples you can bring into that one. Heck, drug use, things like that, and how that has ruined so many people's lives if they can't exercise any type of self-mastery towards it, which is very hard to do with some, especially the hardcore drugs, because the whole intent of some of the hardcore drugs is actually to remove your ability to master yourself, essentially have self-control. Anyways, but yeah, that can be applied in so many situations. I have a slew of things going to my head. I'll stop them right there, but that makes sense. Recognize the flow of your life. Don't try to get what you want out of it, but find the balance, exert self-mastery, and you'll be happy. You can have a jelly donut every now and again, exercise, things like that, and things will be just fine. So, but where this can get bad is, I hesitate a little bit to bring up this example, but when you think of some of the worst things ever to happen in human history, in this case, let's go to the Holocaust. Holocaust, awful, evil. We have a hard time finding anything good about it. But with Taoism, this idea there's nothing really truly good or truly evil. It's recognizing, the balance with all things. You could say, yes, the Holocaust at one point was like the yin side here, just all dark, and there really is like any white dot there. But you can make an argument that I'm not making this argument, just so you know. This is just an example. But the argument can be made, I shouldn't say can be, has been made, that you know what, there were some good things that came out of the Holocaust. Man, I say that because, man, it's so bad. I'm assuming you guys have had lessons on this, but let's say I've done a bunch of research into this, and holy cow, it does not leave you with a happy feeling inside. So I've done a lot of research in this, but recently I've done a little bit more, and just holy cow. So anyways, and one of the things that happens during this is the experiments, I mean. And these are just beyond horrific type stuff, like as immoral can be. You have no respect for life. And have you ever heard of Dr. Mengele or any of these things and the type of stuff that he did or that anybody else did? The experiments were awful. I'll just give you one. And this isn't even the worst one I've heard, where basically you dissect someone while they're still alive, saying at what point will the pain get so bad that they'll pass out? And then how long does it take to revive them? and then practicing that over and over on the same as well as other people, just to get those data points. I mean, it's just, again, immoral beyond immoral. All the things that were done in these experiments. So, but they did collect a lot of data, and what has been argued is like, well, that data ended up being a good thing, because a lot of the data, even though it was obtained in immoral ways, has helped modern medicine out incredibly to this day. And you could argue that now that the Holocaust is kind of like a little blip, kind of like this now in our minds, like something awful, but at least it was way long ago. At least as if we remember it, we cannot repeat that again. But the data that has basically led into some modern miracles, you could say, where the lives saved because of modern medicine, and a lot of it, I shouldn't say a lot of it, but a good amount of it on account of some of the data from these immoral doctors, Nazi doctors of the Holocaust. Well, anyway, there's the argument. And this is where we step into an area of this type of thinking that it does not sit well. Does not sit well, and we recognize that's not a good thinking to have, because if you take this idea that there's nothing all right and all wrong in the world, then where do you stop with the wrong and where do you stop with what you think is right? Meaning that everything all of a sudden becomes okay to do, because in the end, it'll find a balance at some point in the future and things like that. And that does not sit well. It does not sit well at all. And yeah, let's just put it this way: that does not work in our society. So it doesn't work at all. The jelly donut example, yes, most definitely works. But the Holocaust example I just gave you doesn't work. So hopefully that gives you an idea of why Taoism, always kind of like that thing where it's like it's in the purview of kind of our culture and the way we look at the world. And I know I'm going into modern times right now, but I feel like I need to, because this is everywhere. It's on our skateboards. I say that because I see it all the time there. We have the symbol in every case, but most people, I don't think, realize what the symbol entails. A lot of good to it, and you can utilize it for a lot of good, but then just if you use it to justify bad behavior, well, again, that just doesn't work. So hopefully those are good examples. Hopefully that makes sense or well enough to you. But this becomes a very popular, getting back to ancient China, this becomes a very popular philosophy, but a lot of people like it. It helps explain things, especially this idea like, well, my life sucks, but if I can just accept it, if I can just go with it, just learn how to deal with it, I'll be as happy as I possibly can. And that did bring a lot of solace and peace to many people in China, to where this became a very popular philosophy. So, that being said, I will leave this be, or I'll end the clip right now. Or sorry, not the end of the clip. I'm going to end the lesson right now, but there's a clip I like to show from actually Kung Fu Panda that explains this quite well, and just Taoism. In fact, that whole movie is basically based off a lot of the philosophy of Taoism, especially a lot of aspects that we would agree with, at least our culture. So, that being said, I'll see you guys later.